ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 730th edition of the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. I'm your host, Daniel Feuerstein. I'll give you an American perspective of our clubs, leagues, players, national team, and other fabulous moments. Get your daily reading from me and other writers over at Beyond the 90, at beyondthe90.substack.com, and locally at New York Soccer over at baddogsports.com. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, come on in. The chat room on YouTube is open. If you have a question for me, I'll try to answer it to the best of my abilities. And please don't forget to subscribe here for your daily American soccer content. And we are very close, my friends. We are very, very close for the start of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We have one more match to go on the international calendar for this week as clubs. I shouldn't say clubs, but these national teams having these friendlies across the world before the 48 teams get together here in North America, in Canada, Mexico, and the United States as they get ready for the biggest footballing party the world has ever known once in every 4 years. And as exciting as it was to see this World Cup coming back to North America for the fourth time in North America. This will be the third time for Mexico. This will be the second time for the United States. And this will be the first time for Canada, for the men's side, they have hosted a World Cup. We already know about Canada hosting a Women's World Cup and a under 20 World Cup on the men's side. It has been a wonderful, shall we say, a wonderful journey to see the game improve and get better. Now, listen, look, at times it can be damning. It could be maddening when certain things don't go your way. But when you see a fully healthy North Zone in this region of CONCACAF, and don't forget, it is 3 zones in CONCACAF. North Zone, Central Zone, which is Central America, and the Caribbean Zone, the CFU. You know, what we hope to see is a World Cup filled with action and tons of goals and hopefully some upsets. Now, we don't know what's going to happen when we get to the first match. Obviously, it'll be Mexico in the first match of the World Cup. And then it will be Canada to take on Bosnia-Herzegovina, and then the United States taking on Paraguay. But one thing is for sure, we're going to have fantastic soccer, fantastic football all across the North American region, and it's going to be fantastic. I mean, I remember 1994. I had no idea at the time, how big of a stage that the World Cup was going to be. Now, I remember as a young boy watching some of the World Cups. I remember 1986 in Mexico, watching it on Univision, watching the 1990 World Cup also on Univision. And I didn't realize how big it was because I'm watching it on TV. It's just a bunch of people at a game. I had no idea. But then I saw it for myself in 1994. The summer of 1994, I just started getting back into the sport after the New York Cosmos and the North American Soccer League ended operations in the early to mid 1980s. And to see the amount of people going crazy, wearing their national team shirts, was just tremendous. I did miss the first match at the Pontiac Silverdome. I think it was against Switzerland. But I do remember the game against Colombia at the Rose Bowl. And that was just tremendous. And it was amazing to watch. I even attended a World Cup game when It was Republic of Ireland versus Mexico at the Orlando Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida. Now it's called Camping World Stadium, just down the road from Inter and Co Stadium where Orlando City play. I was in college, but I was working at Walt Disney World on their college program. And this was their alumni program, meaning I attended or I worked at Walt Disney World in the spring of 1993, and I went back for more for the summer of 94. And before the World Cup began, the New York Rangers were playing in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Vancouver Canucks and beat the Canucks in 7 games, 4-3 at Madison Square Garden. I was at the Marriott World Center Hotel along 535 in the Lake Buena Vista area. And after leaving my position that night over at the now called the Hollywood Studios, but then the Disney MGM Studios, leaving Mickey's of Hollywood, I headed over to the Marriott World Center, and then I watched the Rangers play Game 7 against Vancouver and won it at Madison Square Garden. But outside of that, when the World Cup got started, I had no idea what was going on. And I was hoping to go to a game. I wanted to see what it was. And of course, you check the schedule. The United States was not playing in Florida. They were mostly set up on the West Coast in California at the time at the Pasadena Rose Bowl. Of course, once again, they started in Pontiac, Michigan at the Pontiac Silverdome where the Detroit Lions used to play. Of course, that was also the home for the Detroit Pistons when it's the NBA season. And so apparently what happened was many World Cup tickets were returned to FIFA because so many people who purchased those World Cup tickets in Orlando, unfortunately, their credit cards were maxed out, bounced. And so FIFA had to take back those tickets. Now, who picked up those tickets? Walt Disney World picked up the tickets, and they offered it to cast members who wanted to go to the World Cup games. I was working as a cast member. I asked my roommate, would you like to go? He said yes. And we went to the Orange Bowl and drove there. I shouldn't say the Orange Bowl, excuse me, it was the Citrus Bowl. My fault, the Citrus Bowl. And, we get there, we're sitting down, and a lot of people. I mean, the scene outside was crazy. The scene inside was even nuts. And so you've had many, many fans from Mexico, and then you had many fans from Ireland. And it was amazing. And even though Mexico won it 2-0, it was a fantastic time. The World Cup brought me back to the world's favorite game. After the time that my father and my uncle took myself, my mother, my aunt, and my 2 cousins to Giant Stadium to watch the Cosmos play. And so it was a lot of fun. And then that night, I went to meet some friends over at Pleasure Island, which was at the time the bunch of nightclubs and, different genres of music. Went to the Rock and Roll Beach Club, and on the 3rd floor of the Rock and Roll Beach Club, because that's how you entered, you had to go up the stairs to enter and then go downstairs to the dance floor. There was a lot of Mexican fans there, a lot of people from Mexico, and they start doing some sort of a dance while the music was going, and they were having a fun time. Such a fun time that the husband decided to use his wife like a whip and whip their friends in the circle. It was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's how they celebrate a win. God bless them. But it was a fun time. It was a fun time. It was an exciting time. And, obviously now, since I would say I watched the World Cup as a fan, 1994. And then, of course, like I said, I was able to watch USA Colombia at the Marriott World Center, and it was fantastic how they won, even though we know the own goal happened by Colombia, that gave the USA the 1-0 lead, the Escobar goal, Pablo Escobar goal. If you saw that 30 for 30, the two Escobars on ESPN, interesting stuff. And, it was just a lot of fun to watch that. And I got back into it. And, of course, MLS came in 1996. And right away, New York, New Jersey Metro Stars. That's my club. I was a fan for 94. I was a fan for 98. When 2002 rolled along, that's when I started covering as a member of the media. But I was not a full-fledged media member yet. I worked for the Phoenix Communications Group in South Hackensack, New Jersey, where I was watching professional sports and college sports and handing all highlights and tapes and materials to an editor, taking an entire game and cutting it down to a minute and 30-second highlight package. I was the only one, except for maybe 2 nights because I had to have my days off. I went to the office from midnight a.m. till 10, 11 a.m. to watch World Cup games from South Korea and Japan. And from 2002 all the way up till now, I have been covering the FIFA World Cup in its entirety, and not just its entirety, but also the U.S. men's national team. It was, and it still is, a fabulous joy for me to watch the World Cup, because I love to see these other nations play in these games, to see how far they can go, while at the same time hoping the USA qualifies out of the group stage and maybe, just maybe, have a good run into the knockout stages. This is what excites me. And, just to let everyone know, that big second round match between Mexico and the United States, that was huge. Because when I came in early that evening or early morning, a little before midnight, I came in. My producer, my editor saw me and said, "This is the most important game you got to watch." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. USA Mexico is always important. Why? What's going on?" Well, we got a call from the Today Show from NBC, and they are asking for the highlights for the game. That's why we're here. That's why we need you to make sure you get anything and everything. And I did. Because the company I worked for had a contract with NBC and CBS Sports news affiliations. Whatever we sent to Charlotte for NBC and what we sent to New York for CBS, they would distribute it to all their affiliates across the country. And they saw my handiwork. And on the Today Show, the highlights that I provided with my editor, Drew Smith, my producer, it was a job well done. I've never been prouder. And so all I can tell you is this. When they won 2-0 over Mexico, it was amazing. It was fantastic. Of course, I celebrated along with all of you. I went downstairs to the lobby, went to the parking lot sections, wide open area where the New Jersey Meadowlands is, near there. and I gave a big yell, a big victorious yell. And my friends, it was tremendous. I'd never felt so prouder of the U.S. men's national team for that big, huge win over Mexico. Of course, we'll never forget what happened in that quarterfinal game. At least we should have had a penalty kick in that one. I can't tell you we should have won it, but all I can tell you is we should have had a penalty kick. Hugh Dallas from Scotland didn't want to listen to Landon Donovan or to any American player on the handball that was at the far post from Germany. Should have been done. Should have been there. Should have been a penalty. And, that's as far as we would go. But I'm excited. We're almost going to be there. It's a little, almost just a tad a week over. Let's get it on. Let's go for it. Let's try to have some fun. And speaking about fun, let's go ahead now with this quick ad. Let me tell you about this segment's sponsor. It's Dino Luzzi Energy Drink. When I need that extra kick to power through match analysis and late night transfer rumors, there's only one drink that delivers authentic Italian energy, and that's Dino Luzzi. Crafted in Italy with the same passion I bring to this show, because real energy comes from real ingredients, just like real soccer talk comes from real insiders. Great show for you tonight. My first guest, he covers the Philadelphia Union for Philadelphia Soccer Now, the one and only Matt Ralph joining me. Matt, it's great to see you. How are you, sir, and how is your family doing?
Good. Always good to talk to you, Daniel. And things are going well, getting ready for the summer right now.
Yes, it really is. I didn't want to talk to you about the Union with this news. I really wanted to ask you about the season, but I guess I'm going to have to talk to you about both. Bradley Carnell sacked just after the start of the World Cup break in Major League Soccer. Supporter Shield season last year and, rough start this year. I think you kind of felt it might have been a rough start because no more Jacob Glesnes, no more Kai Wagner, no more several defensive players who've been so good for the Union. And you're bringing in a new batch, and okay, I can understand maybe this is why maybe the defense is lacking somewhat. But for Carnell to get sacked the way he did, to be honest with you, I'm shocked that they decided to send him off and they decided to go in a different direction.
Yeah, it's the optics aren't great, right? One win, 15 games, but it's also one win, 15 games. It's not even quite halfway. There's 19 games left in the season. It's MLS. We're not judging success by finishing top four. You're getting into the playoffs. Anything can happen. So I do think it's surprising, just because he did lead the team to a Supporter Shield last year, and things are going poorly. But I don't know that this change is really going to change much, because Jay Sugarman is still the owner. He still has the same philosophy. He's promoted Ryan Rector, who's a great young coach, but they're not changing anything. So I guess I don't really completely understand sacking the coach when it's not like, oh, we're deciding we're going to go in a different direction. And you listen to the press conference with new sporting director John Shear and majority owner and president Jay Sugarman, and they're just doubling down on what's been going on this whole time. So, it seems a little odd to me. So you throw Carnell under the bus, but you don't say anything that you're going to change. So, I'm a little. I admittedly wasn't the biggest Carnell fan. I don't love the way the Union have played under him, but they also won a Supporter Shield, so I think he deserved a longer time. At least give him the World Cup break and let him kind of come out that rejuvenated and see what happens. So yeah, it is surprising, and I don't know if it's justified from the standpoint of, I mean, how many coaches have been fired in MLS? I mean, it's following that trend, but I don't think it's justified in other ways.
It was really weird this season with MLS, especially with the World Cup break. There's been a grand total of 7 head coaches that have either been sacked or they've stepped down. I know it started in Orlando City with Oscar Pereja. Then all of a sudden, there was like a domino effect across the league almost. Columbus departed ways with Henrik Rydstrom. Montreal parted ways with Marco Donadel. And then, we're just seeing after exodus of head coaches that are just, we're done today, you're gone, we're going to move on to a different direction. And, you're also seeing some fans of certain clubs that are pining for, well, these guys are getting fired. Why not fire our guy? Especially, the other LA team, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're screaming for Mark Dos Santos to get sacked because I guess since they lost that second leg in the Champions Cup to Toluca, I don't know. I mean, whatever. But we're not going to get into that. But Carnell being, I think, the 7th man to be sacked, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's a little bit, and I think, like I said, I think it's a little bit of that trend that they've kind of followed, and it's, obviously we wish that the sprint season had been now and it had ended, and that would be, if that was it, that's it. But I just do think it's a little bit, everyone's kind of operating on this weird time frame. I mean, really, you're looking now at essentially two sprint seasons now, right? After the World Cup break, the rest of this season, then the sprint season, then you're finally going back into a full actual regular season again. And, we lamented the break for the Leagues Cup, and, this is longer than the Leagues Cup break. So, it is a weird, no matter how you look at it, it's a weird schedule. And, it's hard to say even how teams are going to look out of the break. Maybe the Union turn it around and, they figure it out. And you kind of look back in hindsight and say, well, why did you need to fire Carnell? I mean, again, he would have 2 months to work with his team, with the exception of Akanya and being on the World Cup team and Danley being with Haiti. But, it's weird. I think there's something in the MLS water that these teams are acting the way that they are.
No, it truly is, and we'll see what happens down the road. We'll once these teams get back after the World Cup is over, we'll see what they'll be able to do, and we'll see if the Union can dig out of the hole. The one thing I think is very important is this, and not to move away from Carnell, but Ernest Tanner, it looks like he's not coming back after going through the disciplinary situation with MLS. I guess Sugarman has decided to move on from him, and I believe taking over as sporting director is John Shearer. What is about John that you think he can do the job now after all the good things that Ernest Tanner has done? What do you think John Shearer can do to take his, now he's going to take his place?
Yeah, I mean, John has done a great job where he's been. He was an assistant coach at the University of Delaware. During some good teams they had, he moved from there to the academy, where he was the talent scout and brought in a number of players, a number of people you would recognize, like Nathan Harriel, Jack McGlynn, several others, where he brought Malik Jakubovic, I think was still when he was in that position. So he's brought in a lot of talent from outside the Philadelphia area as a scout, and he was certainly involved then as a first team scout in bringing in a number of players as well. So, he's still relatively young, doesn't have quite the international experience that someone like Ernest Tanner brought, and but he's definitely kind of come up through the organization, and I think that's their philosophy in a lot of ways, is to promote from within. From more of a neutral standpoint, you have to question the ambition around this because it is someone from within, and is that the best direction to go in? I know some people were concerned about some of the recent signings and how they've panned out so far. And, he was involved in that in one way or another, whether you can fully pin the blame on John or not, he was involved, right? And so it still becomes a question of, is the Union going to succeed and actually get over the hump of winning MLS Cup by doing the same thing that they've continued to do? I mean, Jim Curtin was promoted from within as an interim. He was actually a little bit younger than Ryan Richter is now. I think 3 years younger than Richter is now. But it's sort of a rinse and repeat. And I'm a huge fan of Jim. I love the work that Richter's done. I think John Shear has done an incredible job in the academy and really professionalizing the way that is organized and the transition from King of Prussia to Chester, and he's been super instrumental. So it's definitely not. I don't have any questions about those individuals personally. It's more of the philosophy of the team, where it's like we're going to double down on what we've been doing that hasn't actually been working, and we're going to say repeatedly that success is an MLS Cup, and they have not won an MLS Cup in 16 years. So that's where I think it becomes a question of, you had a manager who was able to bring them to the Supporter Shield, wasn't able to get over that hump, in part because the philosophy of the team is to not solidify the squad with players that are ready to play now. They brought in a bunch of players who weren't quite ready, and heaven forbid you block an academy player. I mean, Brendan Aronson only had to beat out Marco Fabian for the job. I mean, I think that's if you have guys that they really are at that level as an academy player, they should be able to beat whoever's in front of them. And so I am a little concerned that it's just going to kind of continue to be the same thing where they're, I made the comment like Jay celebrating that almost being number one, like, because they've only ever almost been number one. They've never actually been the MLS Cup winner. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be a whole lot of difference other than, similar philosophy, similar approach. Just a couple people who are different names at the top of the technical side.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens, once they get back from the break, obviously, and easy there. Hopefully, you're not getting a cold or you're not allergic to the World Cup there, Matt. But look, Ryan Richter's done a fabulous job with Union 2, obviously, and look at you. Is that your Lego World Cup? Really? Where'd you find that? Is it a Lego store or something?
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm jealous. I'm really jealous of you. How dare you do that to me? But I love it anyway. That's fantastic, man. That's unbelievable. Like I was about to finish off and say, Ryan Richter's done a great job with Union 2, obviously. Got to the Eastern Conference Final against Red Bull over at the MLS Next Pro playoffs. And hopefully, look, I wish him good luck in the first team. I don't think he'll have any problems. I think he'll know some of the players there that was part of Union 2, and it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Richter's great. I think he's the perfect person for the job as the interim. We'll see what happens in terms of, how soon they decide to if they give him the rest of the season or they bring in Oscar Pereira now or later.
See, you never know.
You mentioned Oscar. I'm like, hey, Oscar would be great here.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I still think he's a good head coach, and I think he'll land a job somewhere. Obviously, there's definitely lots of time for teams to select someone new. But anyway, Matt, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining me. Enjoy the World Cup, and hope to talk to you again after the break. Okay.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it, Daniel. Always a pleasure.
Matt, Soccer Now, talking about the Union and, of course, the craziness that is the Union with owner Jay Sugarman. My next guest covers the Tampa Bay Rowdies for RBLR Sports. James Knowles joining me right now. James, it is just unbelievable when you make a coaching change from last season, and at the start of the season, you have something amazing in front of you that I don't think the Rowdies have seen in a very, very long time. Neither have the fans.
Yeah, the Rowdies were going into this season, obviously, on the back of a very poor, very poor, let's say, season and a half to 2 seasons, probably. And I don't think that anybody had the idea that we were going to be in the position that we are right now. I think that everybody was hopeful, obviously, that we were going to do better, because not making the playoffs for the Rowdies is a pretty big failure, in my opinion. And I think the turnaround at the club has probably proven that most of the people at the club also agree with that statement. So, with everything kind of out of the way of the off-season sales, the off-season hires, the off-season or the preseason as well, and then everything up to now at the very beginning of June, it's been I really am. I'm really happy that this is the way that it's gone down, obviously. But I will say that, yeah, it is kind of surprising to see that the Rowdies have gone from not worst to first, but in our minds, in Tampa Bay Rowdies fans' minds, certainly something near worst, and one of the worst of our performances. And now, obviously, we are undefeated. So I think that it is a happy surprise for everybody involved.
As they say in the trade, you didn't have that on your bingo card, did you?
That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Ever since Dominic Cassiato came over from Union Omaha, I mean, look, he did amazing things 2 seasons ago, giving them as their second USL League One title. It looked like they were kind of falling back a little bit last season. We already spoke about the Rowdies last season, of course, and when he was plucked from Union Omaha. Now, obviously, the Rowdies asked for permission to talk to him. They gave it to him, and now look what he's doing so far. This turnaround, like we've already said, has been so fast and so quick. What differences have you seen from the players besides the level of play on the pitch at Al Lang?
Yeah, I mean, this is a hard one for me to this is a harder one for me to get into, because I would never really want to question a player's motives, obviously, right? We would never be in a position where you don't know what's going on in somebody's head. You don't know what's going on in the locker room, and you really to be on the outside and talk about whether or not a player is totally happy to be there or totally motivated to be there. I think that that's so hard to do from anyone's position who is outside of the locker room. But at the same time, I do want to point out that there were plenty of players last year who I don't think lived up to what fans expected of them. The Rowdies only kept 2 players, Lawrence Wyke and Lewis Hilton, from last season to this season. And I think that kind of speaks for itself, where some portion of the team, a couple of players retired as well, so that should be pointed out. But some portion of the team, if they thought that they didn't have the proper motivation, whatever that might be, maybe that was part of the reason that they were let out the door. But I think that, again, it's hard to pinpoint and say that any one player is in that position. And now on the other side of things, I will go ahead and say that I think that the new Rowdies roster and all of the players that they have showing up in green and gold every week, I think that these players are, you could not question their motivation at any point. And I guess that's the best way to see it, right? I don't want to be in a position where I'm being forced, I guess, to ask if any player is lacking the proper motivation, because you're not seeing, again, from our position, you're not seeing what you expect to be full effort on the field. That's a large difference, in my opinion, from last year to this year. Yes, they are playing differently. And I think that there are players that are offering different things, obviously. That comes with having an entirely new roster. But at the same time, I think that there are noticeable differences in the way that we have players chasing down certain plays, and the way that we have players kind of bought in a way that possibly they were not last year. Again, I say this and I keep hedging myself, because I don't want to say that any individual player or the team overall, even, that they were not properly motivated. But I was forced at multiple times. I was in a position where you have to question that because of what you're seeing on the field. And 2026 is the complete opposite. So at the very least, at this point of the game, you're very happy that nobody's making you ask that question of the team. And so, yeah, motivation is absolutely through the roof right now. I think that the players are really feeling themselves in a way that we haven't seen as Rowdies fans. And to that extent, I mean confidence. I think that they know this shot, I'm going to take the shot and it's going to go where I want it. This pass, I'm going to put it exactly where it needs to go with the right weight and everything. That's how you know when you're gonna make the play. If you're questioning yourself out there, and you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm gonna get there in time to make this tackle, you're not going to get there in time. And ultimately, you're probably going to end up committing a foul, whatever, get a yellow card, give them a free kick in a dangerous position. If you know what you need to do and there's not a second thought in your mind, you just go and you do it. And that's where the Rowdies are. From front to back right now, that's where the whole team is.
No, absolutely. Did Casiato bring anyone over from Union Omaha to be a part of this Rowdies roster? Were any of those players on a free agency, their contract was over and he brought them over during the transfer window? Or they just decided to find new players and bring them in?
Yeah, a good number of them do have ties to Union Omaha from last season or from before. I think Max Schneider was one of the players that came over from the USL League One last season, playing there in 2025, whereas Pedro Dolabella was a player who was with Union Omaha in the past, but he was with North Carolina FC in 2025. So actually, there's a range of players here. There are players from all over USL League One, not just Union Omaha, although, again, many of them do have experience there. And then there are quite a few who came in from different places in the championship. MD Myers and Russell Cicerone are names that are going to be well known to people who probably tune into this podcast. Charleston Battery and Sacramento Republic players previously. Russell Cicerone, actually, he's been all over the USL Championship, honestly. So, yeah, these are a couple of names that everybody's going to know. And this is a well-scouted group. Of course, if you have experience with them, you're going to know which players you want to bring in. That's a given. But to build a system that really plays into a couple of the players that you have brought in, Russell Cicerone is a well-known quantity in this league, and you know what he's going to bring you. So if you set up a system that allows him to thrive from his usual position out on the left wing, in this case, it has really worked out for him. MD Myers is another one where we have a system going at this point that really works out for him and gives him the kinds of balls that he needs to put a lot of those into the net. And he's got, I think, 4 goals and 2 assists so far through the season. He started with an injury, so he wasn't immediately going for the Rowdies. I think that obviously those are very good returns for playing, 10 games now? I'm pretty sure. I just did the stats earlier today. I should have this a little bit more memorized, but
it's 11 actually, but that's
11. Okay, perfect. So 11 games, 4 goals, 2 assists for MD Myers. What more could you ask for, honestly? I think that the coaching staff has done a very good job in terms of creating a tactical system that works for this team, obviously. But to do that, you do also have to have the personnel in place. And that is part of what they've done for sure. And Union Omaha is a very good base for a lot of the players and, of course, the coaching staff too.
No, it really is. Have they changed any formations? Has Casiato, I guess, brought the same formation from Union Omaha to the Rowdies, or has he just kept everything the same?
So, there is a difference between what the Rowdies were used to, and I think actually what a lot of people expected from Dominic Casiato, and also how he ended the season in 2025 when he was here for just a little while. The Rowdies had been known in the past for playing with 3 at the back and 2 wing backs who would be most responsible for getting up and down the wing, obviously, and whipping a lot of balls into the box, trying to get a lot of chances there. The Rowdies have mostly played with 4 at the back, 2 central midfielders in front of them. So it's almost a box that frequently, not always, obviously, but frequently develops in the middle with the two center backs, Nathan Dos Santos and Brian Schaefer, sitting behind the two central midfielders, be those Max Schneider and Lewis Hilton, or Sebastian Cruz has filled in that role as well. A couple of other players that I'm forgetting. Lawrence Wyke started this past weekend versus Louisville City for his first start, actually, in 2026. And then the fullbacks are tasked with getting forward, but they are not responsible for as much crossing of the ball as I think we've seen in past iterations of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. They are frequently more involved in getting little triangles and numbers overloads right outside the edge of the opposition box. So on the right side, if I know my directions, on the right side, the right fullback will often be involved with who would nominally be the right winger, and then the attacking central midfielder. And those three will create overloads that they obviously beat the opposition defense on, and then hopefully find MD Myers if they can't get a shot off on their own. And then moving forward on the left side, it will be the left fullback, the left winger, and either the attacking midfielder again, or maybe one of the central midfielders, who in that case obviously would be acting more as a number 8 and getting more involved in the attack itself. So yeah, it's a lot more. It's just, I think, a lot more passing on the ground for one thing, and it is a lot more about putting a large number of players in positions where a lot of coaches, I'm sure, and I don't know the specific numbers, but they have charts that they've broken down the field into different sections, and those sections that are right outside the edges of the opposition penalty box, those are obviously very high chance or high value chances that come from there, high value shots and what have you. So the Rowdies are taking a lot of shots and creating a lot of chances in those areas. You can see just how much the team is trying to fill in those spots. And it has so far, obviously, worked very well. And our numbers overloads are brilliant in the vast majority of the games that we have seen.
The Rowdies at this point in time in the Eastern Conference, a 9-point lead over second place Indy 11, 10-point lead over third place Detroit City FC, an 11-point lead above Pittsburgh Riverhounds, of course, the current defending USL Championship winners from last year, and then Charleston in 5th, Louisville City in 6th, Miami FC in 7th, and Hartford in 8th, just above the playoff line. It's really amazing that Indy, Detroit, Pittsburgh, I mean, everyone's in the between the 10s and the 18s, 19s, and the Rowdies already passed 25 points in top of the Eastern Conference, and you're leading San Antonio by a +6 for the USL Shield for the regular season. Did you expect them to accumulate these many points in such a quick moment of time?
Yeah, again, the postseason, the preseason, it would have been last season's postseason, but the preseason, we would not have expected this. I saw that the Rowdies were building up what looked to be a pretty good team, but you always have that thought in the back of your mind, I guess. If you have the League One All-Stars, why weren't they in the USL Championship before this? And now that we're sitting in the beginning of June, my question actually is, no, wait, why were they not in the USL Championship before this? Max Schneider is a player that has completely blown me away. Sebastian Cruz is another one. I haven't highlighted him as much, I guess, on this show so far, but he has started as a left back. He started as a right back. He started as a right winger. He started as an attacking midfielder. He started as that number 8 midfielder in that kind of box that the Rowdies will build every so often. Honestly, it's shocking to me that he has not had a better chance than this previously. I think he was signed from AV Alta, if I'm not mistaken. AV Alta from USL League One. And they weren't necessarily an outstanding team as far as I remember, but God, he has had an incredible season so far. And I truly, again, it makes me wonder what situation have the Rowdies built tactically, or possibly how bad was the scouting all around that these players were left in USL League One for as long as they were? It's just mind-boggling now that we're doing so well. There was either the possibility to do this all along and scouts missed it, or I guess, and this one I don't think that this is the more likely option, but it is a possibility that Dominic Casciato has created a system that has allowed all of these players to flourish in a way that they simply weren't before. I think that they were always capable of this, and I think that it was just missed for a long time. And, partly that does come from Dominic Casciato knowing a good number of them previously from coaching Union Omaha and coaching against them in the case of Sebastian Cruz, obviously. But yeah, it's the USL League One All-Star team. Maybe somebody next year goes out and recreates the same thing, because there's obviously talent down there. And if you can find the puzzle pieces to put together, it doesn't take anything necessarily revolutionary, in my opinion, but it has worked out so well.
No, it really has. I have to say this. I think it's basically the old adage. Sometimes these players slip through the cracks and someone else grabs them. And then when you have a head coach like Dominic Casciato, he knows about them, he's unearthed them as well, and he brings them along, then everyone's going to be on notice. Because why? Because we've never heard of this guy before, or maybe we have heard of him before, but he's not going to go over to this club, and look what they do. Yeah,
exactly.
Yep,
that's
exactly.
That's my takeaway so far. That's kind of where I'm leaning.
Where are they taking a break for the World Cup as well? USL Championship? Are they playing right through?
They're playing right through. So the Rowdies will play away. They have a game coming up, obviously, this weekend, and then they have a game on Wednesday, which is the day before the World Cup actually starts. I believe they host the weekend following that Wednesday, and then I know on June 20th they will be away in Brooklyn, because I actually have tickets to go to that game up in New York City. So that'll be a fun one. And obviously with the World Cup going on around it, I'm hopeful that we'll see, but I'm hopeful that there will be some people who see what's going on at the World Cup and they go, oh yeah, soccer. I kind of like that sport. Maybe I should go look at, oh wow, the Rowdies, the local team is doing so well. Maybe I should go to some of those games. Is that going to happen for everybody? Probably not, but let's hope that even one person just looks at the local team's record and they go, wow, the Rowdies sure are doing really well. I should go to some of those games.
East of the ballpark is the original Nathan's restaurant. Get as many hot dogs as you can.
There we go.
Fries,
there we go.
Get some fries, onion rings, and they actually serve it's either oysters or clams over there as well. So okay. I mean, don't trust me there. Just don't go during July 4th for the hot dog eating contest. That disgusts me. But that's hot dog abuse, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, stand up and show the beauty you're wearing, my friend. Show the beauty. Show that mutiny. There, look at that. Look at that. The Tampa Bay Mutiny. Now, was that the goalkeeper jersey or is that the training jersey?
I believe this was one of the goalkeeper jerseys, yeah.
All right. Look at that. That's awesome. I still have my Metro Stars stuff too.
There you go. Nice.
Yep. I'll never give that up. That's for sure. Collector's items.
Exactly.
Finally, I don't know. I don't have the Rowdy schedule in front of me. Is RBLR going to Raymond James for the Wrexham tour?
Well, I actually wasn't planning on going to that, but as it turns out, I have family who wanted to go to the Wrexham game, and they're even coming down to go to that one. So, yes, there will be some RBLR representation at the Wrexham versus Leeds game at Raymond James, and I know that's going to be a very hot game. It'll be in the middle of July, but for family, you got to go, right?
Absolutely. I'll see you there.
Okay, there we go.
I'll be working it, but I'll see you there.
Gotcha.
Yep, that's gonna be a lot of fun. I'll give you the details when it gets closer. So
Sounds good.
So if you want to meet up, we can meet up. But other than that, look, the Rowdies are doing something special. I don't know if we've seen something this special in USL Championship at all, or maybe first time in a long time. But I'll tell you right now, if they can continue on this road, and they could be a favorite for that USL Championship trophy there for the end of the year. We'll see what happens. But right now, Casiato and the Rowdies, they're doing something amazing over there, James. I appreciate your time as always. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. That's James Knowles, RBLR Sports. He covers the Rowdies. And now we're going to move ahead and we're going to talk about, normally, of course, we all know, no Red Bulls at this point in time because of the World Cup break. But I will say this. We're going to recap real quickly the friendly between the United States and Senegal. And here we are. You know, I got to tell you, if you want to say you want to give that entire match like a numerical rating, I would give it at least 7.5. And the only reason why I docked 2.5 away from a 10 because of the two poor plays that allowed Sadio Mane to get his goals. Just poor reads from the back line, poor read from Anthony Robinson, allowing the ball to be moved down the pitch. Mane cutting through the space from the back line. That was, of course, that was Tim Ream. That was Mark McKenzie, Alex Freeman. I know Freeman was more on the right side, on the far side. But, you know, that was not really a good look for the back line. And then, of course, the wholesale changes that happened in the second half, first 4 to 5 minutes of the second half. And that was an absolutely poor job by Miles Robinson to, I don't know what he was trying to do. I know he was trying to chip that ball away, maybe take it away and put it out for a throw-in for Senegal, or maybe trying to clear it himself, but he made a mess of it. And Chris Brady, who came in as the backup and the start to the second half, he put himself in the no man's land. Now, obviously, part of that is Miles Robinson's fault for allowing that to happen. And then, of course, the open net for Senegal. Now, I thought Miles Robinson redeemed himself somewhat when he tracked back to slide and clear the ball away. But, you know, the constant professional Sadio Mane trailed the play and caught up to both the ball and Miles Robinson and just put himself in a position where Miles was going to kick the ball into Mane off his shins and into the back of the net. And that leveled the match at 2 in the 49th minute. Let's go ahead and talk about the USA goals, because those first two goals were tremendous, absolutely tremendous. How about Ricardo Pepe? I know if you watch, or some of the podcasts like Alexei Lalas' State of the Union podcast, Eric Winalda said something. I know during CBS Sports Golazo with Jimmy Conrad, Marcelo Balboa, Charlie Davies, they're saying that Pepe should come off the bench. Now, I will say this. I understand why they're saying he should come off the bench, because you want him to spark play, and I understand that. I'm of the mind that I think Pepe should start up top with Christian Pulisic. I really do. I believe, or if you're going to keep Pulisic in the midfield, then I would have Balogun with Pepe up front. I think Ricardo Pepe was the key cog missed in the last World Cup in Qatar. And that's the fault of Greg Berhalter. Greg Berhalter should have taken Ricardo Pepe to the World Cup 4 years ago, did not. And that's why we didn't do as well. Maybe if we had Ricardo Pepe on the USA team 4 years ago in Qatar against the Welsh and against the English and against the Iranians, we probably would have had more than a goal or two scored in its entirety. Maybe we would have beaten England 3-0. Maybe we would have beaten the Welsh 2-1. Maybe it would have been 2-0 or 3-0 USA over Iran. And you know what? If we would have had Ricardo Pepe against the Dutch in the round of 16, maybe, just maybe, Ricardo Pepe would have been the danger man against the Dutch because he plays over at PSV Eindhoven. And he would have been that dangerous against the Dutch. And then the Dutch would have to be scrambling. Now, I'm not saying we would have beaten the Netherlands, but we would have been a lot better. We would have been a lot hungrier. We would have been a dangerous side against the Dutch. But once again, when you've got a guy like Greg Berhalter as your head coach for the U.S. men's national team, it just did not go the way it was planned. Should have beaten the Welsh, should have beaten the English, should have scored more than a goal against the Iranians, and should have topped the group. Should have. It didn't happen, unfortunately. But once again, what are you going to do? There's nothing much you can say. And then, of course, finally, Folarin Balogun getting the go-ahead goal, was in the right place at the right time on the cross. Even though it was slightly deflected, it still got to him, settled it, struck it inside the far post, 3-2 after his first goal attempt was wiped out because he was offside. The second go-ahead goal attempt from Malik Tillman, of course, unfortunately, Balogun fouled his man, even though I don't think it was a foul, but that's just my opinion. And then finally, the third time is the charm, and Balogun finally got the goal to make it 3-2 USA over Senegal. They're going to face Germany in Chicago at Soldier Field on Saturday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Central. TNT Sports on TBS, HBO Max streaming live. Of course, don't forget Spanish language, Universal streaming live on Peacock and everything else that goes on with this. So it was amazing. It was a lot of fun. I was happy to see great play, great defense. Matt Turner looked pretty solid to me. We'll see what Matt Freese. I believe Matt Freese is going to get the full game this Saturday afternoon. So hopefully Matt Freese will be the number one, and Matt Turner will be number two. Outside of the individual mistakes, this was a very strong victory for the U.S. against such a difficult opponent from Africa in Senegal. And I don't care. I'll say it. They are the defending AFCON champions, not Morocco. Morocco should never have gotten that title. Morocco should never even gotten a sniff of it because of all the wrongdoing they did. Now, I understand what Senegal did was wrong, but still, all the towel stealing, all the shenanigans that Morocco did on and off the pitch was just terrible. They don't have to do that because Morocco is a good enough nation to take you down every time they play on the pitch. So, what are you going to do? They really shouldn't have had to, they shouldn't have won the trophy. They should never have been given the trophy. They should have remained in Senegal, period. If they're going to do that, they should have done it after the trophy presentation the next day or two, not in 2.5 to 3 months ago. So that's all I can say about that. But once again, that's CAF for you. What are you going to do? They want their publicity, shall we say? But other than that, the World Cup is almost here. Next Thursday, June 11th through July 19th, all on Fox Sports and Fox Sports 1 in English, Telemundo, and Peacock on NBC, Spanish language. I want to thank my guests tonight. I want to thank Matt Ralph from Philadelphia Soccer Now and James Knowles from RBLR Sports. My name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you very much for watching me tonight. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, one more show, and then we'll be reviewing every single World Cup match day here on the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. Once again, my name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you very much for watching me tonight. And as always, please, 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 please enjoy your football. Thank you. Take care. So long. And bye-bye for now. Have a good night, everybody.